Yeah, so fuck that.
In personal news, I all of a sudden developed a taste for tequila, which is something that I was completely averse to for the last decade of my life. So yeah, what you're hearing is just a bunch of tequila and lime juice. I'm not calling it a margarita because that's not what it is.
No, it's a potion. It's a potion I wish I had right now.
It's a potion, it's a lotion, it's a main topic for
I've been watching Tucker lotion his entire body with this drink for about the last hour now.
How's that for a segue? It's a potion, it's a lotion, it's a fucking main topic for the week. We're talking about supernatural shit. I am so goddamn good at segues, guys. Have you you've had some off the wall experiences? You've had a couple, right?
I don't know that I would say anything off the wall, and I haven't really experienced anything that makes me believe one way or another, but definitely have me questioning some things.
Have you've had some like glitch in the Matrix moments?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think the big standout one to me, and we'll see how well I can tell this story when I'm not inebriated. This would have been early 2000s. I think I was in middle school still. And one of my friends lived way out in the country. He had a barn, horses, goats, everything, surrounded by cornfields. And, as you do when you're a kid, you grab your BB guns and a machete to hack through the brush, and you go traveling.
Yeah. You go seeking adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. Adventure calls, baby. So we walk to the north side of his pasture to where there's a bunch of cornfield. And you can't really see too far through that field, even when it's all cut down, because it like kind of crests into a hill. So we were really curious how far it went and what was on the other side. So we just start walking through this cornfield. The corn was probably 7 feet tall at this point, at least. So you're really having to like trust the sun and to get through and across. So we walk probably about a quarter mile through this cornfield, and we start to get to a tree line, and I start getting just weird feelings. I don't really know what to call it. I called it bad juju back then.
Yeah.
Something felt wrong. It was almost, I don't know, like that sinking in your gut you get when you get called to the principal's office or something. Very adjacent to that.
Yeah, when you've gotten caught doing something that you really shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, and I don't think it was that we were afraid we'd be caught trespassing or anything, because they would sometimes ride their horses up there and had a bit of a rapport with at least the field owners, so that wasn't really on our mind. This feeling came out of nowhere. So we walk a little more into the tree line, and that whole perimeter is honey locust trees. So if any of you know what those are like the really spiky, thorny trees, and none of them had like any leaves on them. A lot of them were dead. There was a real vibe there. I let everyone around me know, there were about 4 of us, that I feel something kind of weird. And they're like, oh, whatever, fuck you, let's keep going. I'm like, yeah, let's keep going. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah,
something's weird.
Giving you a little heads up here. That's all.
So we walk another quarter mile or so into this forest, and we reach a hill where it just goes down into a ravine where there's a creek. As we start to descend this hill, the other friends start to mention they kind of feel weird too now. I was like, yeah, see, I told you, it's growing. Something's just kind of weird. I don't really believe in any of this stuff, but, I had a feeling that I couldn't explain. We get down to the bottom of this hill into the creek, and all my friends go off to the right exploring upstream. For some reason, I just want to go the opposite direction, explore downstream.
Yeah.
We make sure we're all within sight of each other the whole time, but there was a bend in the creek, and it was kind of bending around a tree. So I walk over to this tree, the feeling kind of grows in me. I look down at the base of the tree, and there's a bunch of sticks just leaned up all around the bottom, skirting it, kind of like a shelter, about 3 feet high.
So they're all just kind of angled, making like a cone of sorts around the base of the tree.
Yeah, and they're put together very densely, so it's really, it comes across as a shelter.
Yeah.
You can't really see through it. So I walk around a little bit further, and there's an opening, and dug out under this tree is, I want to say a chamber, I guess, like 3 feet by 3 feet and maybe 2 feet high.
A little hidey hole. And
it's full of bones. I don't know my bones super well. It didn't look to me like human bones. There's nothing large, no skulls or anything. But it was just littered with tons and tons of bones. You couldn't even see the dirt under it. And so I called everyone over. We had a big what the fuck moment, and that was pretty much that.
And then you dipped.
Yeah, to me, I mean, I think the most supernatural aspect of that to me would be I had a vibe ahead of time, and it was then kind of confirmed by seeing a really weird thing. I still don't know what the fuck it was. In all likelihood, it could be just a spot where hunters back in those woods decided to throw something kooky together, because that sounds exactly like something I would do. But to have the kind of premonition of we're walking into something a little weird here, and then you do, it's bizarre.
I think that I've definitely learned to trust your premonitions on things like that, because you had something along those lines when we were getting ready to fly to Greece out of JFK, when you were just like, this is not a good idea. We should not do this.
Yeah, and there was a lot to base that off of.
Yeah, like there was obviously...
The pandemic was really starting to surge, but it felt like something more to it. I think I was telling you that. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I know better now, and to this day I still feel bad for kind of writing you off in that moment.
And I was vomiting like the whole plane ride, and I get motion sick sometimes, but I've been on planes before and never had that problem.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of weird shit happening.
There also possibly could have been a gluten factor, but...
I did eat pizza right before that, and did recently find out I'm gluten intolerant, so...
Which sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I know I meandered a little bit on that one. I'm better at telling stories when I'm drunk, but that's one of mine.
I think I have one. I would always... So I'm not sure if you ever got into the whole creepypasta thing.
More recently than back when it was actually relevant. So I've been watching a lot of reviews of old ones and commentaries.
My feelings in creepypasta are kind of iffy. I think I appreciate what things like the No Sleep podcast, which I do listen to, what they've done for the horror short story community a lot. Yeah. But I think that there was something that was lost when we moved away from the creepypasta model to that, because with creepypasta you had this thing that is the same reason that I enjoy really good found footage horror, and that is suspension of disbelief.
Like whenever hornets.
Yeah, whenever you'd get a creepypasta across your desktop, across your feed, and it was anonymous, there wasn't somebody trying to take writer's credit for it. It was just something that popped out of the ether, and you're now just looking at it on a monitor. That made it scarier if it was written well. The caveat there, a little asterisk, if it were written well.
You gotta sort through a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like that with found footage horror, but back to my main point, there was a creepypasta that circulated for a long time of a guy, like, when he was younger, coming home from school, and, like, hearing his mom's voice from upstairs, and just thinking it sounded off. You know, kind of like that feeling that you mentioned when you were going through the field. Just thinking it sounded off. And he kept, like, calling out to her, but she just kept saying his name over and over again. And, he's getting ready to go up the stairs to go, like, see, what's going on, what she needs. And then, all of a sudden, the front door opens, and it's his mom coming in with groceries and shit.
And it reminds me of another story after this.
And he's at the bottom of the stairs, and he looks up, and he sees this, like, uncanny valley-looking ass face looking at him from the top of the stairs. And, that particular one honestly scared the living shit out of me, because...
Is that like doppelganger shit, or...
That exact fucking thing happened to me when I was, like, 9.
Wild.
Not with my mom, with my stepmom.
Mm-hmm.
And the house that my dad and my stepmom live it's like 130 years old. It's an old-ass house. It's one of the oldest ones in Greene County that's still standing. But, that for real fucking happened to me. Like, I was over hanging out at the neighbor's house because he had Morrowind. So I was playing the shit out of Morrowind.
Yeah.
And I came back over because my History Channel thing that I wanted to watch was on because I was a weird fucking kid. And I heard my stepmom, Joy, calling from upstairs. And, I just kept... It wasn't exact, like, word for word. But, I started walking my way up there. And then, like, right as I was, like, maybe quarter way up the stairs, all of a sudden, here comes Joy back from her walk. And I see the fucking spooky-ass, white, fucking uncanny valley-ass face at the top of the stairs. And because originally, like, I had, like, my room upstairs. Like, when I would go visit my dad, I had, like, a little side room up there that I, had my fucking Sega Dreamcast hooked up in. I did not stay upstairs for, like, 2 years.
No, how could you?
Like, Jesus Christ, no. And then, like, after that, weird shit would happen. Like, so my youngest brother is about 10 years younger than me. Half brother. He's about 10 years younger than me. And there was one morning that my dad woke up to, get him out of bed to feed him when he was an infant. And the mobile above his bed was just shattered. Like, the pieces were all around him.
Wow.
Just crazy shit like that would happen in that house. I haven't heard of anything crazy like that happening.
Them some malevolent vibes.
It is. It's fucking weird. I would always see, like, a woman in a nightgown walking through the upper level of the house where all the bedrooms were. There's some crazy shit in that house. I don't know what the deal is. It's a really cool house, but fuck, man, I just don't like being upstairs for any length of time.
Yeah. I always caught vibes like that in my grandma's house. She always said there's ghosts there. I never had any direct experiences personally, but she would always talk about being able to see the outline of something sitting on her bed. She'd feel it press down.
It's the fucking rake, man.
Her sister lives with her now, my great aunt, and she's complained about that a lot. She will call out for my grandma in the middle of the night. She's like, "Linda, something's sitting on my bed again." Which,
son of a bitch.
It's pretty wild. I've never had any direct experiences there, but they swear they have, and I've always caught very, very strange vibes.
Knock on wood, I don't think my house is haunted. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Well, recently, when I visited my grandma, she actually gave me a story that I had never heard before, and I have no idea how she hadn't told me this. I guess people guard their stories.
Well, especially old people that kind of have a stigma against, like, mental illness a lot of the time. Like,
yeah, definitely. But this was a story with her and her sister, my great aunt. They were both there at the time, and they were both there telling me the story. So I had two people who experienced the same thing, corroborating with each other that this is what happened. This was when my grandpa was still alive. He had been at work, and my grandma and her sister were sitting in the dining room, just having a cup of coffee, waiting on my grandpa to get home. And they hear the door open. My grandpa walks in. He hangs up his coat. He walks right past them without looking at them. They talk to him. It's like he can't even hear them. He goes into the other room, closes the door, and then they see him pulling up in his truck. And then he walks in, and he swore they had been drinking or something. They hadn't been. As far as I know, they didn't keep alcohol in the house at that time. So they'd just been sitting there drinking coffee. They both told him what they saw, and he never believed it. But they whatever they were experienced, they certainly weren't lying to me. They weren't spinning yarns my way. That's not really the type of people they are. And, you know, I can kind of tell when they're trying to fuck with me.
Yeah.
And that's just not something they really do. So I have no idea what to say about that.
I got one that didn't happen to me, but did happen to a friend. So about, I'd call it like 45 minutes from here, there's a ghost town along the banks of the White River called Hindustan. And Hindustan was one of like the boom towns in Indiana back in the pioneer days. It was kind of like an outpost before you got to Vincennes. It was a big like river outpost. I think there was a grist mill there. There was, you know, whatever the 1830s equivalent of industry would have been there.
Yeah.
And I think that it had a population of like 4,000 at one point. So pretty big.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking big for a frontier town. And sometime in the 1830s, the exact date escapes me. If I had a Jesse here, I could just pull it up. But I'm going to have to do that manually. There's a park there now called Hindustan Falls, because there's like some falls there and along the river. They're just kind of... Okay. All right. Now I'm going to get the numbers right. Okay. Hindustan was founded on the falls of the East Fork of the White River in 1816. The settlement sat along the original stagecoach route between New Albany and Vincennes, and was one of the only roads in the new state of Indiana, which had been a territory until 1816. By 1820, it was the largest community in what was then still Daviess County and the most promising town on the White River. The town was named Hindustan by a soldier, Captain Caleb Fellows, an English immigrant who had served with the British East India Company in India before he came to the United States and invested in land along the still raw Indiana frontier. By 1820, about 1,200 people lived in the new town, making it one of the largest settlements on the frontier Indiana. Many lived on houseboats on the White River. The surge of population toward new land on the Indiana-Illinois frontiers, as well as Hindustan's location along the stagecoach route, meant that it was constantly open to carriers of disease, and disease eventually destroyed the town. There was a cholera or yellow fever, they're not sure, outbreak in 1820, and anybody who didn't left just fucking died there. Like, by 1820, it says, by 1824, less than half of the population remained in Hindustan, although many seem to have stayed in the county. It just completely wiped that fucking town out in like 5 years.
Yeah, that's too relevant right now.
Yeah. So, buddy of mine went to school in a town by there, and he was really into, you know, he was really into like that first wave atheism, you know, like before YouTube picked up. He was one of those guys, pretty edgy guy, so he would fuck around with Ouija boards all the time just because obviously he didn't believe in the shit. And I'm still not 100% sure where I stand on it, and he's still, you know, kind of in that edgy atheist realm. But he and a girl that he was out on a date with, you know, in your pickup truck, as you are wont to do when you're a teenager in southern Indiana. You know, you go out to the scary abandoned ghost town with the girl you want to suck on her face or whatever. Go out there, and he has this fucking Ouija board in the back seat. So they go out here to Hindustan, turn the lights off, turn the truck off, put this board down in the center console of his little Ford Ranger, and they start, you know, just doing the haha, it's so funny Ouija board thing. And eventually they get a response. The planchette starts moving, you know, on its own. However much stock you want to put into that. And eventually it starts kind of spelling out threats to them. Not even telling them to leave or stereotypical shit like that. Just straight up shit like suffer and things like that. And then at one point, you know, my buddy asks, what do you want? And it spells out the word power. And at that moment, his truck turns off. Both of their phones are dead. And they're just kind of left in the darkness out here in a fucking ghost town.
Don't panic.
Yeah, don't fucking panic. Eventually, he does get his truck restarted. It takes like 5 minutes, apparently, of fighting the fucking alternator. And they get out of there. So that's one of the more extreme stories from...
Let's go visit
the hellscape of southern Indiana. This place has a lot of weird shit going on. There's all kinds of ghost shit happening, like in southwestern Indiana. A lot of paranormal investigators, however much stock you feel like putting in those guys, say that it's because of like all the limestone deposits in this part of the country. But
there's a lot.
Who fucking knows? There's all kinds. There's multiple like portals to hell around the state, according to urban legends. Like you drive through these 7 overpasses or tunnels or whatever, and then you see some crazy shit. Like there's multiple iterations of that. Like in Brazil, Indiana, just all over like Clay County. There's a few up north, like around Lafayette.
Yeah.
This place is weird.
Yeah, my grandma's house that has all the vibes, and she's had the experience in it. It was built on a spring. Like she has a sump pump in her basement to keep it from flooding, and it's on a spring. It's got a natural well on the property.
That was one of your first experiences with seeing somebody do water dowsing, wasn't it?
Oh, shit, yeah, thank you for reminding me. That was wild. My grandma was building a new addition onto her house, and they had to dig at one of the water lines, but that place had been there for so long, they couldn't find any documents that show exactly where it was. So Bob Jones, the guy who was contracted to build the place, always wore a red and white polka dotted hat. Really good musician. Coat hangers are his magical item. He would play the fiddle with coat hangers at his country shows.
That's crazy.
He'd play the shit out of it. He was really, really, really good. He taught guitar to Mellencamp's kids. But they needed to find this water line. So he cuts up a metal coat hanger, bends it into dowsing rod shapes, holds them, and he just starts walking around the yard. And I watched him spend about 30 minutes slowly walking around the yard, waiting for these things to cross and stay crossed in a line long enough to suggest that that's where the water line is. And there were a couple times that they crossed, like around where the old well was that my grandpa had filled in so none of the kids would fall in it or anything.
Yeah, because you got to do that.
Yeah, especially with the type of kid my dad was. And yeah, wild boys. But I watch him walk around the yard for about a half an hour, and then he reaches a point on the hill where they cross, and they remain crossed for about a 15-foot stretch. And then when he moves off of it, they uncross. And he was so confident that he had found the water line that he drove the backhoe up to it and just started digging. Sure enough, perfectly centered, he nailed the water line.
That shit's bonkers.
I don't have any explanations for that.
Yeah.
And I haven't personally tried dowsing, so...
neither have I.
I'm kind of curious about it now.
Yeah.
That was... water witching is what they called it.
Yeah. Yep.
Water witching.
That's like it was a way more common thing, like especially like I think from Pennsylvania on through the Midwest.
Yes.
Was a really common thing. And I'm not sure how much of it is like a witchcraft thing and how much of it was a like a Pennsylvania Dutch, like a Dutch thing.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because you know those like patterns that you kind of sometimes see on the sides of like houses or barns around here.
Yeah.
That a lot of that is Pennsylvania Dutch. Like those are hex squares. Like that's like Pennsylvania Dutch, like old world ritual magic shit.
When you live in the crossroads of the country, some weird shit.
Yeah, you find some bonkers stuff. Another thing, because, okay, so if you grew up in Indiana, at every public and school library were copies of Haunted Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
Multiple volumes.
I've got one on my shelf.
Yeah, I know you do. In one of them, there was mention of a lake called the Blue Hole, which I think is kind of around Terre Haute area. It's in Prairieton Township. I don't know where the fuck that is, but I think it's around the Terre Haute area. You know, it was a watering hole. It was a swimming spot for a long time, you know, and I think it still is. But people just always reported weird shit happening there. It's kind of along the Wabash River. So one of the urban legends is that pirates that were going up and down the Wabash stealing shit would use that as like a stowing spot for treasure to come back for later. But there have always been reports of people like feeling themselves getting grabbed and pulled by something in that fucking lake. And that for some reason that always weirded me out more than a lot of the other ones, like the haunted school of like, you know, the tower at the Union where a dude supposedly jumped out of in the 60s. That
really? I've been up that whole tower because of the
me too.
job.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't catch any weird vibes there.
Corey and I both worked catering jobs at the student union at Indiana University's Bloomington campus. So we were all up and down that fucking tower. I've taken Rin up it.
Yeah, I've heard lots of stories about IU buildings, but I've never felt anything weird in any of them.
No. I think it's mostly because I'm on the clock.
No time to feel ghosts when you're on the clock.
I went to an elementary school in the same town that's like outside Hindustan. It's called Lagodi. I went to Lagodi. There used to be two elementary schools in Lagodi. There was East and West. West was kindergarten through third grade, and then East was 4 through 6. And the building that was Lagodi Elementary East it's like a military contracting company now. So we live pretty close to like the largest inland naval base in the world, I think, is what Crane is. It's really fucking big. It's like 100 and some change square miles. It's pretty goddamn big. But so there's lots of like private military contracting companies around here that like contract people out to work for engineering departments for the Department of Defense, Department of the Navy specifically around here. So that building that was one of my old elementary schools got bought, and it's that now. But back in the day, it was Lagodi Elementary East, and before that, it was actually a private Catholic school. So like even when I was going to school there was still a big concrete cross on the side of this brick building. You know, it just would have been too expensive to take down.
Yeah,
I think it's still there too. But there were stories of like that place being haunted. Like there was, and I actually remember reading one of the Haunted Indianas with a story of like, yeah, there's a fucking ghost of a janitor at Lagodi Elementary East, and I was like, bitch, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, 4th grade me, like, immediately got his brain fried by that. And it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So I always daydreamed about, like, trying to find some way to, like, get back into the school late at night so I could go ghost hunting for the ghost janitor. I never fucking felt anything there. I was never accosted by a ghost janitor in the bathroom trying to watch me pee or anything like that.
I think we're coming up with a good list of places to go spook hunting.
Oh, for sure.
At some point.
100%. Yeah, I never encountered anything there. I mean, even with my 4th grade paranoia-addled brain that was reading every volume of Haunted Indiana that was coming out, I still never fucking felt anything there.
How about cryptids?
Ooh, cryptids. Do you have a favorite? Like, just the one that's the most fascinating to you?
Honestly, Bigfoot has gotten a little more interesting to me over the years.
I remember you. I'd never heard you talk about Bigfoot until Willow Creek came out.
Yeah, Willow Creek, not a great movie.
Oh no, but it's Bobcat Goldthwait, so that's
yeah. And I went to see that at the IU Cinema with Bobcat there in the audience with me watching the movie, and then he did a whole talk after it. And his talk was great. It was all about, hey, we did this movie with one camera. Technology's getting way better. You have the ability to tell your own stories. And it was really, really wholesome and motivational. And honestly, the fact that the movie wasn't that great, I feel like it kind of reinforced his point a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I didn't watch something that was super unattainable before hearing that from someone who's been in the industry. You
watched a found footage movie about people looking for Bigfoot.
Yeah, at one point it like cut out and Bobcat yells from behind me because he was sitting directly behind me. It's not part of the movie, which was good to hear from him because it seemed like it was.
That's funny.
But
Bigfoot.
Matt Moneymaker, he does the BFRO, Bigfoot Field Research Organization. I think that's
why I have a tablet sitting in front of me so I can look this shit up.
I don't know. They basically they go on Squatch hunts and they curate people's stories. They go for the more verifiable ones, and I still think it's all bullshit.
But it's fascinating bullshit.
It's fascinating bullshit, and the way some of these people talk about it, especially like Matt Moneymaker, it's pretty interesting. And I don't know if this really fits so much into cryptids, but Skinwalker Ranch is also pretty fascinating.
I've been like really into skinwalkers since like 2009.
Yeah,
because of 4chan's X forum, the paranormal board. The people have been swapping skinwalker stories on there like since I was in high school.
Do you know much about Skinwalker Ranch?
No.
Because, like, Skinwalker as a cryptid or as, like...
Fleshgate.
As a native tale, that doesn't really fit so much in with what Skinwalker Ranch is. There's a whole host of experiences that people have there. It has been scientifically researched. Mm-hmm. I mean, the government has put their own money into it via Bigelow, and it's pretty wild. There's people that report aliens, UFO sightings, what they, I guess, would allude to as being interdimensional beings. It's basically what they'd call a hot spot.
Where is it at? Is it like Southwest?
Yeah, Southwest.
I figured. I mean, the American Southwest is fascinating and beautiful, but also, Jesus Christ, that place honestly terrifies me.
Yeah, it really does.
Like, the desert's fucking scary.
Yes, it is.
Cryptids. I again, like I said, I've read all these fucking Skinwalker stories, and they're fascinating. They're terrifying.
Yes, they are.
When you grow up in a wooded area, it just further adds to your paranoia that you already have about like your cats getting eaten by coyotes and shit.
Yeah.
And man, I went through a Loch Ness monster phase when I was like 4. Too. Yeah, I think everybody does. Like
when you're young, Loch
read
Ness is like sweet.
Yeah, you get into dinosaurs, and then it's just like, oh shit, bro, Loch Ness, what? Like, there's the most iconic photo of Loch Ness is like 100% been pretty much proven false, but like, goddamn, that shit was fascinating and terrifying for a good minute there. The other one that pops out to me, it's not really something that comes up as like sightings of it anymore, but the Wendigo. I think the Wendigo is the most fascinating one to me.
I think I would actually agree with you there.
Yeah, just because it's... When you're talking about tribal cultures, like, especially if you're looking at, like, the commandments in the Old Testament, you realize that a lot of these things, a lot of these laws that were supposedly given down by the God in the Old Testament, a lot of it is to create cohesion within a tribal network and try to keep people from basically murdering each other. And that's pretty much exactly what the fucking Wendigo is. It's a myth of this creature that fucking kills and eats people and is just never satisfied and always hungry. And it's allegory for cannibalism. Yeah. Like, it's saying, don't fucking resort to cannibalism, you fucking desperate piece of shit.
Donner party asshole.
Yeah. Like, that's what the Wendigo is.
I feel like that's what a lot of the older stories can be. If you look far enough into them, you see an allegory for...
Yeah.
Basically warnings, like all the don't go into the woods shit. I mean, there's legitimately stuff out in the woods that'll kill you.
Yeah.
Bears, anything. Not to mention how easy it is to get lost in the woods. It just is. You experience it less so now, but in a time without technology, more dense woods, like, it's totally foreseeable you could walk out there and get lost.
And like in Germanic cultures, there was always the concept of outlawry, where they wouldn't really kill you for committing a crime. They just make you live out in the wilderness.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like, and then there were outlaws, potentially, like murderers waiting out there in the fucking woods or out in the volcanic ash wastes of Iceland.
Yeah, surviving alone ain't easy.
There's a fascinating book that I actually have the audio version of called When They Severed Earth from Sky, by Elizabeth Whalen Barber. And it's the story, not really a story, but it's kind of an anthropological look into... The subtitle is How the Human Mind Shapes Myth. And a lot of it is based on the notion that a lot of these myths and stories that we get passed down primarily from European cultures, is a lot of what they talk on, but they also talk about Native American cultures. About how a lot of these myths were the people who made them essentially making like a zip drive of an event that happened. Like they were making like a RAR of what happened, more or less. So the goddess that lives on the mountain with fiery red hair becoming enraged, that's a volcano. Like, duh, that's a fucking volcano.
100%.
Like Prometheus is a volcano. You know, we can kind of figure out when the Prometheus myth started propagating itself around the Hellenic world, and being like, okay, this kind of coincides with the eruption of this volcano in Turkey, kind of thing. And they touched on a bunch of stuff. Like they specifically mention the myth of the fire-breathing dragon guarding a hoard of gold. How a lot of that may have been triggered by grave robbers going into burial mounds in Denmark. And, you know, they'd have torches with them, and swamps produce gases. And, boom, explosion. And the other one that I thought was really fascinating as well was they talked about how the Norse myths of dwarves may have been influenced by Germanic peoples in the migration era of like the 300 to 400 AD area, encountering the Hallstatt culture. And the Hallstatt were a people who lived in what's now Austria, and they were a mining people. So, of course, you get these stories of these people going into mountains that wear these strange red felt caps, and then they come back out with riches and gold and iron and all of these things. Like, yeah, those are dwarves. That's the Hallstatt culture.
I could never do that.
Yeah, mining is terrifying. I come from
caves.
I come from a few generations of coal miners, and won't. I mean, now we have this thing where we don't really do tunnel mines anymore. We do, in Appalachia, they call it mountaintop removal. Around here, we just call it strip pit mining. And then you just dig a big fucking hole over a coal vein, scoop all the coal out, and then fill that shit in with water that's pretty much poisonous for a long time afterwards. They always say that if you want to get rid of a body, you come to southwestern Indiana because we have all those coal pits here,
coal pits and pig farms,
and you can just dump it. I want to say that's true, but a friend of mine who was murdered about 6 years ago, they only found her because she washed up in one of those coal pits.
Fuck.
Yeah. And those dudes are still in jail, and I know plenty of people who are going to be waiting for them when they get out. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This place is weird. We live in a very bizarre spot.
We really do.
Terre Haute. Terre Haute, this isn't really supernatural, but Terre Haute apparently used to be a hangout for a lot of the mafia guys, because they would hide down there, because 41 was a direct link from Terre Haute to Chicago. So they'd commit a bunch of crimes in Chicago, just shoot straight down the Terre Haute.
Just lay low into the Haute.
God, that place sucks.
Yeah, it does. I used to go to martial arts seminars there growing up.
No disrespect to anybody who lives in Terre Haute, but I fucking hate your city. The only good thing about your city is that there's a Dunkin' Donuts I can stop at on my way to Illinois.
Illinois. Anyway.
Says the guy who, until recently, lived in Chicago and hated every goddamn second of it.
Truly.
Have you ever gone ghost hunting?
No, but I really want to. Like my current belief on ghosts is that I have no belief. I would love to have a reason to, but currently I just don't. So, I don't know. I like entertaining ideas, and I like looking for things. So, yeah, I'm open to going and being persuaded.
I've gone once, like one legitimate time. Like, you know, there were plenty of times in high school where we'd go to the abandoned, mine equipment maintenance field.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'd see all the fucking crazy shit there. Everybody insists that they would see shriveled hunchbacks running around there and shit, and I never saw anything. I went there plenty of times by myself at night and during the day and never actually saw anything. And actually, I went like legit, like attempted semi-pro ghost hunting once. And for the life of me, I can't remember. I was mostly there because I was trying to pick up this girl that wanted to go ghost hunting. So I don't remember where the fuck we went. I was mostly just trying to suck on her face. And we went to this churchyard with a pretty well-maintained graveyard in it that had some graves going back to the 1820s, which was pretty impressive. So it was along the White River somewhere. I just, for the life of me, can't fucking remember where it was. And I'd heard from another buddy of mine that used to do the paranormal thing that, you know, you roll the voice recorder and you ask him questions. But a lot of the times he said that they would get better results just having conversations among themselves. Because they always said that the reason that you want to use a mechanical tape recorder, like an actual like physical tape recorder, is that there are moving parts in there that generate noise that they can grab onto and use and twist and turn into what they need to say without using too much energy.
Okay.
Again, not sure how much stock I put in any of this shit, but that's what I was always told. And a buddy of mine that used to do the paranormal thing, he said that they had better luck rather than just asking questions and then pausing and waiting for a response. They had better results if they would just plop the recorder down and just talk among themselves. Like, they would get weird things like people's voices saying things that they clearly didn't. So, like, you would hear your own voice saying something that you obviously didn't say. And not just, like, in a, oh, wow, I don't remember that way, but in a weird, uncanny valley way. Like, you know, how people always talk about how skinwalkers sound when they talk. Where it sounds like an animal is trying to replicate how a human sounds, almost.
Spooky.
Things like that. And then, like, half the times it would just be nonsense. Just absolute, like, you would hear somebody in your circles voice saying just absolute garble, just shit. That would freak me out way more than like a 4 times just enhanced voice of somebody saying I'm cold or something like that, something vague like that. It would freak me out way the fuck more to hear your voice or my voice coming back to me saying something that I didn't fucking say in a very like stilted way.
Oh, let's go ghost hunting.
Yes.
Throne of Iron ghost hunting series. I think it's gonna happen.
Turn undead.
Yes.
Fuck. Scary shit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got for that.
I think that's all I have too. So, thanks for listening. This has been Steelcast, episode 2, supernatural, paranormal,
Signing off.
freaky shit.